Hi, you guys. Thanks for coming in
Hello,
today. My name is
nice to
Barb.
meet you.
Yes, and my name is Barb, and you are?
My name is George Walker. I am Jasmine's dad.
Nice to meet you. And you are?
Oh, I'm Jasmine. Sorry.
Hi, Jasmine. I like your shirt. Very colorful. Hey,
Oh,
thanks so
thank you. I thought it
much.
was going. It goes really well with my belt.
Say again.
It goes really well with my belt. I mean, like that nice seafoam green, as well as the different kinds of I figured that with the dark jeans and the dark shoes, I feel like I need to brighten it up as I go up. So I figured why not just have green in there as well. So that
Well,
way.
I think you look smashing.
Thank
Very
you.
stylish today and very cheerful. And
Thank
and
you.
so hey, thanks so much, you guys, for coming in. I really like it when parents assist their children or your, soon to be adult children. That's very helpful for us. So George, thanks so much for coming in. Now, you
Of
guys
course, thank you.
probably, got referred to Voc Rehab. I'm going to say Voc Rehab, which stands for Vocational Rehabilitation. And
Okay.
you probably got referred and you're probably wondering, what the heck this program's about. So I'm going to take a moment to explain it.
Yeah.
Okay. So vocational rehabilitation helps people who live with disabilities prepare for and get work that is equal to their interest and abilities. Okay, so that's a
Oh,
lot of gobbledygook, and we're gonna go into a little more explanation of what that means. But I wanted to give you that idea to start. So Voc Rehab has been around for a long time. It's a very reputable program that helps people who live with all disabilities. Now, sometimes when people hear rehabilitation, they automatically think that it's only for people who live with drug and alcohol addiction issues.
that's what I was gonna say, or
Yeah,
have
and
severe mental disorders.
right. And so we do help people who live with mental health issues and with drug and alcohol issues, but we also help people who live with physical disabilities, learning disabilities, diabetes, all things that might at some time interfere with the person's ability to prepare for or get a job that is the job they want. So we serve people with all kinds of disabilities, but when we're meeting with Jasmine and her support team, including you, Dad, we would just be meeting with you. So it's not like a group activity. It's simply a partnership between the VR counselor, that would be me, and Jasmine and her support team, including her parents. Does that make sense?
It does. I guess I just want a little bit more clarification. So those who are drug addicts or alcoholics or anything of that nature, they will not be in the same building as us when we are here.
Well, I can't guarantee that that wouldn't be true because people who live with that disability might be meeting with a counselor down the hall. But
Okay.
what we're doing here would be in our own individual office. And so we don't typically interface with other clients at the same time. That's,
Okay.
our goal is to maintain confidentiality, which we're going to talk about a little later on. And so, I assure you that our goal is always when we're meeting with clients, especially young people, is to protect their, safety and confidentiality.
Okay. That's
Okay.
I just want to make sure she's going to be safe because
Yeah, absolutely. That's our goal as well. So, as I told you guys, what our main intent is to help people who live with disabilities secure employment that's equal to their interests and their abilities. And we have been doing this for 100 years. Can you believe it? I always ask people, don't I look good? We've been here for 100 years.
all
Haha.
right.
Okay. So we started out in after injured soldiers returned from World War I. So we were helping at that time to help those injured soldiers return to their communities, get gainful employment, and be able to support their families again. So a very noble cause. And then as the years have gone on, we have expanded our services to people with all kinds of disabilities, as I already explained. And so now we are, of course, helping young people. So we went from soldiers to young students such as Jasmine in 100 years. And we're still here, and it is a very popular program because it is successful. It works. So we're really proud of it, and I think you guys are in a good place. Now, in addition to describing a little bit of that history, I'd like to tell you my role so it's clear, so you know what to expect. When I work with you, Jasmine, what I do is help you to identify what your interests are. Those are the things you really like to do, and also what your abilities are, the things you
She's talking to
do.
you.
Yeah, the things you do well. Does that make sense so far? Interests and abilities?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
You bet. So when I'm working with you, what I do to start is help you to identify what your interests are. Those are the things you like to do, okay? And then your abilities, the things you do well. And then we look at what jobs would be compatible with your interests and abilities. And then thirdly, what services or supports do you need to achieve that job goal? So Jasmine, when I was looking over your file before you came in, I noticed that you wrote down that you would like to work on a cruise ship. I thought that sounded very exciting. Is that it? Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun because I mean, like, you get to travel the world and all sorts of stuff, and like, especially like as a performer, um, yeah.
Yeah.
So like, it's something that I definitely want to do.
Okay. So Jasmine, so for example, what we would do, we already know that that's something you would like. And I understand you're a singer.
I am. I'm really good at it.
Okay. And so if we would then look at, you want to be a performer on the cruise ship, is that correct?
Yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun. Plus, you get to like I said, you get to travel all over the place, and like you get like to do performance for different audiences, and it's relatively stable. That's what, at least what I can tell you.
Awesome. Awesome.
Mhm.
So
I um
go ahead, Dad. Do you have a
well,
concern, George?
it's something that I'm a little bit concerned about because, like, yes, it's true you get to travel to all these kinds of places. However, especially now, especially given the world the way that it is currently with what's
Yes.
going on in Europe and beyond, it's just
George,
I'm a
I
little
hear
bit
you.
concerned in terms of your safety, Jasmine.
Absolutely. I would be now, Jasmine, we don't mean to be a downer here, but that's what we parents and counselor types kind of do sometimes. I totally get that, George. And so, but Jasmine, you're really young and you have, this would be something that I think that you would explore when you're older and after you've graduated. And so what it can be is a starting point. Okay. Because here's the other thing. While you can perform on a cruise ship, if that's something that you like and you're good at, you could also perform in local theater. Would that be of interest to you? Not that you wouldn't do a cruise ship eventually. That could be a possibility, especially when your dad is feeling more confident that you are older and able to be secure and safe. Would that make sense, George?
Yes, ma'am. That's just something that, well, not to mention, I know you can do it. I know you can do anything you want, baby girl, but the only thing I'm a little bit concerned with is, you know, you're deciding a profession that's not known to be stable unless you're,
Mm.
really lucky. Not saying that you're not going to be one of the lucky ones. I don't have a doubt about it, but it's something I just want you to keep in mind is all.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So if I'm getting this right, George, you want to make sure that not only is it safe, but is it something a person can rely on for, to make money and support themselves and their family. And those are the concerns that we look at. So Jasmine, we want to make sure that you have looked at all the information about that job to make sure that it works for you, that it's reliable, that it's safe, and that you can make money doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
So Jasmine, you seem kind of upset. Do you want to share? Am I picking up on that correctly?
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember when I was younger and I had an idea about a job that I remember my grandpa saying, "Oh my goodness, what are you thinking?" And I remember being kind of discouraged. But what I want you to hear today is that, your dad and I are both saying that sounds like something very exciting to be reviewed for the future, and just making sure that we're looking at all of the options and making sure that if you do that, that it's successful. So nobody is saying no to performing on a cruise ship. In fact, I think we're pretty supportive of it. It's just we want to make sure that we enter it the right way. Is that okay, George? Did that make sense?
Uh, yeah, yeah, to some
Okay.
degree, yeah.
Okay. All right. So um, now, so we've talked about what book rehab does. We've talked about my role in it. The other thing we're going to talk about, two other things. I'm going to be giving some information. If at any time it sounds confusing, you guys have questions, please ask. But before we get to the next good part, I'm going to share with you some information about eligibility criteria. This program, to be eligible to receive services, you must have a diagnosed disability. And from Jasmine, when I looked at your documentation, it looks like you live with attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, or that's what somebody has suggested. And so you must have a diagnosed disability that in some way gets in the way of you achieving your goals. So that's what we call an impediment to employment.
How do you mean exactly? Because when you hear the word disability, and I understand that ADHD is a disorder, but disability seems a little strong.
Right. And many people have an adverse reaction to the word, but it simply means that, in Jasmine's case, that your brain functions differently, but very importantly, Jasmine, it does not mean that you are not bright or creative and capable. It simply means that your brain operates a little bit differently, similar to how somebody who lives with a learning disability, like Einstein, who had a learning disability but was incredibly brilliant. So he had to work out ways to overcome some of the challenges while getting to his brilliance. And that's our goal here. So when we say disability, it's such a strong word. But really, we just talk about in the beginning of when we're working together, we have to talk about how it gets in the way. And then we're going to talk about all the ability in disability. So does that make sense, you guys? Disability, we look at the ways in which this particular thing gets in the way and how we're going to work around it. And then we're going to talk about all the abilities and how we elevate those abilities. I hope that makes sense. So again, we look at diagnosed disability, and then does it get in the way? Is it an impediment to employment? And do you require services? So those three things. So as I'm asking questions, I'm listening to see if those three things are there to determine if you're eligible. And then very importantly, before we move on to the next section, I want to talk about rights. Now, I've given your rights and responsibilities, and I've given some paperwork. I had it sent to you guys at home, but I want to highlight two of the very important ones. One is confidentiality. So when we're meeting here today, I will gather information from you that is kept private and will not be released without dad's written permission, dad or mom, their written permission. As long as you're a minor, that means that you are younger than 18. Once you become 18, then you can sign for yourself. But so we do not release information without written permission. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Now, there's one little nuance to that, and I do not expect it to ever even be a concern, but it's something that I have to share. Let's say, Jasmine, that I were to hear that you were considering harming yourself. I don't expect it, but I have to share this information. That if you were considering that in any way, that I would be obligated to share that information to protect you. Okay. But for the most part, everything we say in here is kept private. Do either of you have questions about that for me?
I don't have anything like that.
Okay, I didn't
Are you
expect it.
sure?
It's just my job to make sure that I explain that part, okay? Then the other one, I love this one. This is called informed choice. And we're going to return to this later in our session today. But it's my job to make sure that you have all the information you need about your abilities, your interests, the services that are available to you, different jobs that would be compatible with your interests and abilities, so that you can make a choice based upon good information. So I guide and you decide. So does that make sense? We want to make sure you have all the information you need to make an informed choice. Does that make sense? So Voc Rehab doesn't decide for you. You, with the assistance of your, trusted advisors, mom and dad, you decide. We just make sure you have all the information you need to do that. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
Jasmine, makes sense to
Okay.
you?
I think so.
Okay. So you guys, on this next part, I told you that we're going to talk a little more about the attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. And Mike, I have a question for you. Jasmine, do you know what that is, how it affects you?
I know I get distracted pretty easily.
Okay, that's a start. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Not really.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about how it might get in the way today for you. And Dad, what I really like is, with your permission, Jasmine, if your dad has other observations, because sometimes we don't know how it affects us, but people around us do. So with permission, Jasmine, is it okay if I ask Dad some questions as well? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so at the beginning of our session, I talked about how for many people who live with ADHD, that's what we'll call it for short, it does not mean that you're not bright or talented and capable. It means that your brain operates differently. And I kind of think of it as two sides of a coin. And on one side of the coin, there are challenges where it might be difficult for you to attend to what you need to attend. So in a classroom, if there's something distracting, it might be really hard for you to pay attention to what the teacher is saying or what you're reading. On the other side of that coin, here's like the strength of it. I suspect that you can hyper focus on something if you're very interested in it. Would that be true?
I definitely say that's something that's accurate.
Okay, so
Uh,
yeah, so what our goal is how do we, on the one side of the coin, the challenges of it, how do we work out the strategies that will help you to overcome those barriers? And lately, when I've been watching YouTube videos, I hear a lot of this term, the use of the term hack, like we're going to do this really cool hack. We're going to do this like trick that we're going to use this to do that. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about. What are some really successful hacks on living with ADHD that can help you with those where it gets in the way? Okay. Then we're going to talk
well,
about,
if I may, oh, I'm so sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was curious as to what other, side effects or other observations that we need to look out for, her ADHD, because, something that I was a little bit confused about when her counselor recommended. I mean, we got her diagnosed as a kid, and we knew that that was something that, distractions. But in all honesty, we're kind of in the dark about it because, they say that like it's a. I've heard from many other parents, it's like it's a blanket
It's a what?
diagnosis, like a blanket diagnosis in the sense
Oh,
of like,
okay.
is it a matter of she actually has it? Now we took her to someone to see to reinforce that, or rather to confirm the diagnosis. But I've heard a lot of parents saying, "Oh, they're just have hyper because they have ADHD, they'll grow out of it. And I guess I'm a little bit confused about it because I
Right.
mean, I'm still trying to work it out in my head. And not to mention, I've also heard that, you know, I mean, obviously it's not true because Jasmine has it, but like girls don't have ADHD. And
Oh, yes,
that's
they
something
do.
that I've heard a lot. And I'm a little bit, uh,
Yeah.
I guess, confused about it. So, is there other signs that I needed to look for? I asked about it at the counselor years ago, but at the time, the only sign she was really showing was the, you know, easily distracted. And I
Yeah.
guess now
No,
hyper
it's
focus, that
it's
makes sense.
yes, it does. And we're when we get to this next part, I'm going to be asking Jasmine, I'm going to ask you some questions. And George, I think that will reveal how it might get in the way. And
Okay.
and then that'll be more clear. But what I like to think of is, remember that two sides of the coin, that it's just this pattern of how we respond to the world. So some things in some environments or some tasks that we're not as interested in, it will be more difficult to pay attention. That is probably true for most people, wouldn't you say?
I'd
Right?
say so. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why I think that how it's a blanket statement
Yes.
threw me. So,
It just might be for Jasmine, for you, Jasmine, it might be more difficult. So it's not that you're not sharing symptom or not, challenges as other people's, but for you, it might be more difficult. But again, we're going to work on ways to overcome that. And that takes practice. Okay. Then the other thing is, we're going to concentrate on the other side of the coin, or the strengths that come from it, the ability to hyper focus when you really need to, which is really important if you're learning a new piece of music, or you're going to be in a theater piece and you need to learn lines, or you're reading, I understand you're a Harry Potter fan, you're reading a Harry Potter book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get, so Dad, when Jasmine is reading Harry Potter, pretty focused, pretty into it, call her for dinner, doesn't even hear you.
no, she loves it. Like I know that she can go through. What was your what was your record again? I think it was like 3 books in a day.
Actually, the first four in a day.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it was pretty impressive. So that's why I was like a little bit confused because this was a post diagnosis, and I'm not expecting her to like stay in her
Right.
room just reading Harry Potter in this quiet.
Yes, but see, that shows how it can be, it's, the good part of it as well, that you can really focus. So, so we talked about how you can be very bright, very creative, very talented, and still have this little glitches. And there are many very successful people in the world who live with this. And in fact, Emma was the actress in Harry Potter movies. I can't remember her
Emma
last name.
Watson?
Yes, she lives with ADHD. And
Really?
she, not only did she act in those movies, she also graduated from an Ivy League college, and she serves as a Goodwill ambassador. So very
Wow.
accomplished. See, so it's just, again, that Emma in her lifetime has learned how to use strategies to help her win the parts where it gets difficult, and then use the gifts of it, the very hyper focus, to do well in her job, and in school, obviously. So that's what we're here to do as well, to help you do that. Does that make sense, Jasmine?
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
So
I
now,
guess
go ahead.
oh, I'm so sorry. So the thing is that I know because I know she did those movies for so long. I'm sure she's at a point where she can afford to do stuff like that. Because I mean, not that I don't want you to go to an League school, honey, but it's just
Yeah,
that can
right.
be really
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah. And I'm not suggesting that, but college, if that's something you're interested in, for sure, that's something we want to make sure you explore. I was just saying that, a lot of times I think people think that just actors, that's what they do. But in fact, she had some good guidance that she went to college as well, you know? So now we're going to move to this next part where we're going to talk about how it gets in the way, ADHD, how it gets in the way. And then eventually we're going to talk about some strategies or things we call accommodations that might help to overcome how it gets in the way. Okay. So Jasmine, off the top of your head, I'd like to ask today, how do you think ADHD gets in the way for you? Like, let's talk specifically at school. How does it get in the way? Can you think of anything?
I hate tests. Like, they're like, I don't know, like it's too quiet, and like, you hear the pencils, and oh my God, those are so annoying. Like pencils that are just like, scribbling, especially the mechanical ones, because for some reason they like squeak extra hard. And like, I don't know, it's just really loud and it's really irritating. And then like I finish my test so that I don't have to hear it anymore. But then like, then I'm just sitting there just listening to everybody else continue their test. And it's just, it's nerve wracking.
So you really want to do well on your test, but you get distracted by those little annoyances. And then it gets to the point where you're so concentrating on them that you're rushing your test. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yikes. Okay. So that would be an example of where it's really hard for it's like your filters in your brain that would help you to choose to ignore that. That switch is clicked off. So we need to find a strategy to click the switch on so you can choose to ignore certain things. And an example for testing would be for you to be able to take your test in a private room so that you wouldn't hear other people's scratching, dropping their pencil, or the chicken scratching on the paper. So that would be a reasonable accommodation that could be made right now in school, where you could take your test in a private room so that you wouldn't be as distracted. How does that sound?
That'd be cool.
Okay. All right. Now, go ahead, George.
No, I guess to be the devil's advocate, I guess, will the teacher allow something like that? And if they don't, because in terms of okay.
And let me
I did
explain.
have an ulterior suggestion that I don't know if it'll, just in case, like, because I don't want her to be like, I don't know, isolated from.
Oh yeah. Okay, I have an idea. Yeah, go ahead. Tell me what that idea is. What's your?
Would you be willing to try earplugs?
Yeah.
Huh. I guess.
Yeah.
I just worry about you if she is able to get that, and I'm glad that she'd be able to get that. I'm worried it would come off preferential treatment-y, and I don't want her to be singled out like that if she doesn't.
Yes, I think that you're really thinking this through, and I appreciate so much what you just said. You made me think of another accommodation that is very successful right now, and that's noise canceling headphones as well. So noise canceling earbuds, noise canceling headphones, those could be what do you think of that idea?
Ooh, I like that.
Okay, so I'm writing these things down, so we're going to come back to that. Okay, so now Jasmine, what about when it comes to what's your least favorite subject?
Well, I don't really like math at all, because I mean, like, math is just so boring. There's nothing to do.
Okay, so if you come home and you have math homework, is it the last thing that you would choose to do?
Well, when you say last,
maybe
sometimes she doesn't do it.
Okay, or doesn't do it, exactly. So one of the things that, because of that, remember that side of the coin that when I'm very interested in something, I hyper focus on it. But if I'm not interested in it, I'm going to delay it. Again, we all do this to some point. But what can happen for you, Jasmine, and I'm gonna suggest or say what I think might happen. You come home and you have some homework with math. and you go, okay, I'm going to do this first. Oh, and maybe I'll watch that video, that YouTube video, and then, okay, I'm going to start it. Oh, but maybe I'm going to watch one more YouTube video, and pretty soon it's time for bed. And then you go to bed, and then you're laying in bed, you're going, oh no, I didn't do that homework, and then you can't sleep. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Hey, I'm not picking on you, kiddo. That is really very common. And so here's what we do. We look at ways to say, okay, how can I help myself to get started and get something done and then do the thing that is more interesting, like watching the YouTube video, learning a new song. And so we might consider some accommodations like setting a timer that I'm going to concentrate on math for this length of time. And then when it's done, then I can do something different. And more often than not, you're going to get done what you need to get done in that shorter period of time, but it won't feel so big because it'll be a shorter period of time. So setting a timer from here, from this point to this, I'm working on math. Another thing that'll help you to get things done in order would be a checklist. So you would come home and you would have a checklist, and maybe your mom and dad and you could come up with this together, that you would maybe, I don't know, feed the dog, then do your math for this amount of time, then do a YouTube video, and then practice a song, something like that. And you would do them one at a time and check it off. So timers and check off lists that help you to get started and to complete things in the order they need to be done. Does that make sense?
Kinda, I guess.
Would you be willing to try it?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can treat
Awesome.
singing like a reward. Like you get done with all your math and you can sing for however long and then get back to doing your homework.
Yes. And so
Okay.
like a little bit of reward, but just, and then we often like try to treat it like a team thing, like, hey, hey, mom and dad, look, I got that done, and yay, everybody's happy. Go do something fun, and we'll come back, right? So we all work
Yeah.
together on that.
Mhm.
And that's really important because in school, of course, you have to get certain things done to get your grades so that you can graduate and then go to college if that's something you're interested in. So the better you get at using those strategies for yourself, the less people have to remind you, which will make you feel better about it, right? And the more success you'll have, but it takes practice. It's not necessarily easy the first time. And we might find also that a timer or checklist aren't the best ones for you. We can look at other ones. The goal is to get things done in the order you need to get them done so you can have success. Okay. The other thing, like, how about getting to school or other events? How do you do? Are you on time?
No.
Mm.
Okay,
And that's partially, unfortunately, just where we are tends to have a lot of traffic lights that never seem to be on our side, but it does drag a little bit getting us out of the house.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things, again, is a checkoff list right by the front door. Very commonly, your brain, very active, very creative brains that you go to leave the house and you're thinking about all these other things and you forget the backpack, or you forget the homework, or you forget your cleats for track, or whatever it might be. So right at the front door. And then the only thing you have to remember is to look at the list. Okay, and go check, check, check. Get that stuff before you walk out. And we kind of suggest maybe the front door would be a good place because it's the last place you look at before you walk out. So that's an idea. And then that'll help you to get to places on time, because very often it's that all the fragmentation in the brain that we forget things. And then that makes us late because we're going back out of the car and back into the house. Does that kind of sound familiar a little bit?
Yeah, a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Jasmine, honestly, with practice, you can get really good at just using that one thing, which would be, that one thing, which would be to,
It's okay.
look at your list, look at your don't forget list. Okay, that's one idea. Now, so, and the last thing I want to talk about is how, tell me about your friend group at school. Do you have a lot of friends at school?
I have a couple. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
awesome. Do you, I noticed, Jasmine, that you get really excited about things, and is it true that, or just an observation, that you might get excited and talk kind of fast?
Yeah.
She does. She's a real motor mouth.
Hey.
What? It's all right.
That's exciting, but that your brain is like, you got so many cool ideas and awesome things to share, and sometimes that you just might be so excited to share it that you might, and I don't know, this sometimes happens, talk over others, because you're just like so enthusiastic and excited that you might talk over a friend, and then the friend might get a little irritated. Has that ever happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. And me too. Okay, you're not alone. I've done that too. All my friends would say. So one of the things is learning how to, knowing is building awareness about how, when we're talking to people, like, we're paying attention also to them to see, am I talking more than they're talking? Am I listening to what they're saying as well? And that's a whole part about social skills, that it's really important that we listen as much as we talk, so that our friends feel validated as well, and they want to hang out with us. That's how we, getting along with people, and getting along with people at work. So learning to share in conversations, and for some of us it's easier than others, and so I think you and I would have that in common. So we just learn to, maybe listen more, and not easy, but we can do it. What do you think of that, Jasmine?
Maybe.
Maybe.
If it's all right, if it's okay if I step in real quick.
Please.
One of the things that I'm a little bit concerned, because Jasmine is such a kind, very endearing person, and she lights up a room, to be perfectly honest. However, Jasmine, is it okay if I talk about this?
Yeah, whatever. Um,
It's been difficult for her to maintain friends, and to be perfectly honest, in my opinion, I think that they are taking advantage of her friendliness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's something that's been worrying me, because it doesn't seem like
Mhm. I think sometimes what,
I'm worried that her friends are not her friends for the right reasons.
yeah. Well, yes, thank you so much for sharing that. Jasmine, do you know that is a really common experience for young women and young men, to learn who are the people in our lives that have our best interests at heart, and finding those kinds of friends. And that's something we all have to do. And so I very much thank you for sharing that, George. And that's something that we work on, social skills that will help you to do just that, to pick friends that are interested in your well-being and you interested in theirs. And so, and one ways to start is to start just being more curious about people. And so, asking questions and then listening to what they say, so that when you get home at night, you can share with your mom and dad what you learned about Lucy, let's say. Okay. I would give you that challenge, that when you meet with your friends at school, say, hey, you guys, I was thinking, I'd like to know, whatever question it would be. What's your favorite book? What's your favorite movie? What do you like about it? And then listen to what they say and repeat back. So, oh, I like that too. That's really cool. And you'll start to see who's really interested and who's a good friend. And you'll be developing that social skill that helps you to keep friends. It's that sharing. We call it reciprocity. You share, I share. Okay. Does that make sense?
And also, don't feel like you have to change your answer just because somebody else
Yes.
likes
Right.
something
Be
that you don't,
brave.
or vice versa.
Right.
But they
Yes.
won't like me if I don't.
Those there's a saying, those who matter, or those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. So that means, I think that's Dr. Seuss, you guys. What that means is the friends who care about you, they will want you to be who you are. Okay. And we all, doesn't matter if you have a disability or not, every single person in life goes through this, where you learn how to pick good friends. And those who are interested in you as you are good friends, you know? And then, but to be a good friend in turn is to learn to listen and be curious about them as well. So would you be willing to try that curiosity thing I just talked about, asking curious questions?
Yeah.
See what happens. I'm going to be curious. The next time we meet, I'm going to ask you about it. What do you think?
Okay.
Just like, see what they say. And when people are interested, when you're interested in them, they are going to be more interested in you. And let's just do that part. And then when we meet again, we'll talk about it. Okay. So Jasmine, now this is the fun part. We talked about how the disability can get in the way, ADHD, that pesky ADHD, how it can get in the way. Now let's talk about all the wonderful things about you again. So you love to sing, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so have you been in local theater, or do you sing in a choir somewhere?
Um. Yeah. I sing in church and school.
Awesome. So do you sing in the choral group at school?
Yeah. I sing in the choir, and I do church choir too.
Oh, that is so great. Do you love it?
Yeah.
Okay. What happens when you have to learn a new
Honey,
piece of
did you tell her
music?
about the show you're in?
Oh,
Oh yeah. I'm in Oklahoma.
oh, fantastic. That is awesome. What character are you playing?
I forgot her name, but um she's the girl that can't say no.
Is
Oh,
that
God.
is it Ado Annie?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's great.
Yo,
I can see
and I
you.
forgot that's one of the songs she sings.
Yeah,
Uh,
Justin, that is so fun. Awesome. So, okay, when you were learning your lines, or when you are learning your lines, or you're learning new pieces of the music, is it pretty easy for you to focus on it?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, like that one.
That one's pretty easy.
Okay. And the house could burn down and you would probably still be working on that song?
Please don't jinx us.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so that's the cool thing, where we can use that parts of your brain that can hyper focus. So we know that you are interested in music, in particular singing. Do you play the piano too, or to play any other instruments?
Mm, I don't know.
No, but maybe that's something you could add to.
I think I think it's definitely something that you should try. There's um lots of things that you could definitely do. I mean, never hurts to try.
Right. And then we also know that when you are interested in a topic, that you are a voracious reader. That means you read a lot on something you're interested in, which is awesome. And so now I'm gonna ask Dad. So if it's okay with you, Jasmine, um, what are the things that you think that Jasmine does particularly well? What do you think she's good
Um, well, as we talked about a little bit, she loves singing and she's got a gorgeous voice.
at?
Um,
Awesome.
And
well, one of the things that I think, because she's always been an entertainer, she's great. She's also great with kids. Her younger cousins absolutely adore her and they want to be with her all the time. And there's also, she loves helping people out. Like one of my neighbors had back surgery recently, and Jasmine volunteered to go over to check up on her, keep her company on some of her downtime. Um, because that's just the type of person she is.
Awesome. So,
Dad.
these are really neat things, though, Jasmine. So you work well with children and with people elderly. You like to be of help to people. Oh, such terrible things that we're hearing about you, which means obviously very good things. So, Jasmine, off the top of my head, I was, thinking about your interest in music and then working well with children. And I had a thought. Have you ever thought about being a teacher? Combining those two things, working with kids, music teacher. I don't know, just a thought.
I don't know.
I mean,
No?
I'm glad you brought it up because every time I bring it up, she gets.
Dad.
Well, so one of the things, Jasmine, we try to help you to think about other jobs that would be compatible with your interests and abilities, and that just came out in my thought. So here's what we're going to do. I have the information I need to determine your eligibility. And you guys are going to hear from me on or shortly before 60 days from now to determine, to say whether or not you're eligible. And I suspect you will be, Jasmine. So then it would be to make an appointment, and we'll move into that fun part where we're going to start talking about jobs that would be of interest to, or that would be compatible with those interests and abilities, including cruise ship entertainer, including maybe music teacher, maybe local theater performer. We'll look at all kinds of things that would be compatible. Okay. And we'll look at what do those jobs take? Like, for example, teacher, even if you're not interested, this is just an example though. To be a teacher, you have to get a degree. So we would look at what would you need to get there? Well, a college degree. That would be something that maybe Voc Rehab could help with. If it were a cruise ship performer, you and I would have to sit down, and Dad and your mom, whoever would be invited to join us. We would look at what are the hiring requirements? What education, skills, credentials, what do they look at? What do you need in order to do that kind of work? What do you need in order to do, what preparation or credentials do you need to do community theater? That's what we do. And then we see how Voc Rehab can help you with a plan to get the things you need, the education, credentials, experience that you need to get that job. And we could also have you shadow. Now we can't, I mean, too bad. I would love to go with you. We could go shadow on a cruise ship, but do a job shadow, but I don't think we could work that out. But we could look at community theater. We could look at shadowing a music teacher or an elementary teacher. So you could watch and see if you might be interested. What do you think of those ideas?
I don't know, maybe.
Okay.
They sound kind of fun.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming in today, you guys. And I look forward to hopefully meeting with you soon.
I hope to meet you too.
Okay.
Did something fall or?
When I gather the information about Jasmine, about your disability, you've signed the written release that will let me get a copy of the report that the school has. So I will be looking at that.
I'm sorry, I meant in your office. Just something fell down. It sounded like something fell. I hope it wasn't something breakable.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Say again.
It's okay.
Okay.
I thought something fell. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. Oh gosh, I didn't hear that. Okay, so you guys, you'll hear from me on or shortly before 60 days from now. That's the time in which we have to make an eligibility decision. And and we will be meeting after that. Okay.
All right.
Okay, take care,
Yeah.
everybody. Bye.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.